Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 74 based on novel. So let's start. Majestic and powerful Yuan power were coursing through Lin Dong's body like floodwaters. Moreover, his Yuan power seemed to be growing at a frightening rate. The three ancestral symbols within Lin Dong's body had formed into a triangle and they were facing each other from afar. However, the three of them seemed to be repelling gently against each other. Meanwhile, the ancestor stone was floating quietly in the middle, while its warm and gentle strength was continuously alleviating the resistance between the ancestral symbols. Amongst the three ancestral symbols, the devouring ancestral symbol and the thunderbolt ancestral symbol were a little tamer. After all, they had been refined by Lin Dong. However, the resistance from the newly arrived spatial ancestral symbol clearly stood out. This resistance was likely something that was not intended, but it was its inbuilt resistance against the other ancestral symbols. After all, it was already a great blessing for an ordinary person to possess one symbol, and having them coexist in a single body was a feat that was nearly impossible to accomplish. Since the beginning of time, other than the symbol ancestor, no one else was able to successfully accommodate all 8 great ancestral symbols within a single body. Therefore, although Lin Dong only possessed 3 ancestral symbols, accommodating all 3 of them was already a task that was more difficult than one could ever imagine. Lin Dong's heart was as calm as still water and he did not intentionally dispel those resistance. Instead, he merely calmed his heart down quietly while he sensed that mysterious spatial strength. After all, if he wanted to successfully gain control of the spatial ancestral symbol, he had to know it inside out. Thankfully, since Lin Dong knew how to control both the devouring ancestral symbol and the thunderbolt ancestral symbol, he did not panic. Instead, he immersed his mind within the spatial ancestral symbol. In fact, it was vaguely possible for him to detect that his surrounding space had begun to wiggle. Moreover, it felt as though the mysterious empty space possessed life. Lin Dong's mind slowly extended from within his body. After which, he merged with his surrounding space, before he followed the empty space and began to spread in waves. The empty space was omnipresent. Lin Dong's mind merged with the empty space itself. After which, just like an invisible eye, everything in this world was reflected within Lin Dong's eyes. In fact, he saw the ice barrier covering the mountains, and also saw countless Tao sect disciples that were looking in his direction. After which, his mind followed the empty space and drifted even further. 30 miles, 300 miles, 3,000 miles and even further away. Lin Dong's mind was just like a roaming ghost at this moment, as it spread into the distance in a manner that an ordinary person could not accomplish. While doing so, he could feel that the obscure sensation created when he first immersed his mind with the empty space was disappearing stealthily as his mind spread into the distance. Finally, that sensation disappeared completely. Lin Dong's mind was currently immersed in this endless drifting. His mind continued to drift for a long time, before Lin Dong suddenly felt that his mind was becoming blurry. After which, he quickly awakened. Then, he was stunned when he realized that his mind seemed to have turned into a void in this realm, and he could no longer summon it back. Only at this moment did he realize just how dangerous this training method was. If he could not summon his mind back into his body, his physical body would become just like a stone statue, and he would no longer be able to move. Anxiety surged within his heart. Soon after, Lin Dong forcefully calmed himself down. After all, he knew that if he panicked at this moment, it was likely that his mind would no longer be able to return. Since this was a trial, there was ultimately a way to break it. Lin Dong gradually calmed his mind down. Soon after, he stopped putting up a resistance. Instead, he followed his mind and completely merged with the empty space itself. A long time later, he suddenly realized that his mind was rising together with the empty space. Finally, it became extremely distant from the ground. Meanwhile, gales whizzed around him, while everything in his sight became increasingly tiny at a frightening speed. Clouds flew past and even the bright sun became increasingly distant. Soon after, darkness began to surge. This darkness looked just like an endless void, causing fear to rise within one's heart. After all, even a reincarnation stage expert could not reach a place like this. Lin Dong continued to drift for a long time, before his mind suddenly shook. Immediately, he turned to his back and saw many 200,000 miles large light rays entwining around each other, before they spread within the distant darkness. Moreover, those light rays seemed to form a huge and frightening formation, and the energy permeating over that formation seemed to cause even the world to tremble. Lin Dong's mind was looking at the back of that super formation. Meanwhile, there seemed to be a 200,000 miles large black crack at that spot, and that crack looked like a wiggling devil dragon. Moreover, an endless darkness, that was completely void of light, was right behind, and it looked like the land of devils. Frightening evil demonic aura continued to surge. However, it was blocked by that super formation. Lin Dong was startled as he stared at that black crack. Could this be the legendary crack between the plains? Moreover, was the area behind the crack where the Yimo originated from. Lin Dong's mind trembled violently at this moment. Even though he merely took a single glance at that crack, it caused him to nearly lose his mind. In fact, the evilness within seemed capable of causing one to sink endlessly within it. If this crack was the crack between the plains, the 200,000 miles large super formation in front of his eyes should have been left behind by the symbol ancestor. Only a man like him could create such a formation that could annihilate the world and seal an entire plain. Symbol ancestor. Lin Dong muttered to himself. Meanwhile, he was focusing his attention on that super formation. He could feel that a wave of energy emitted from that formation was able to easily shatter a peak expert who had passed 2 reincarnation tribulations into pieces. That man was indeed worthy of being the strongest person since the beginning of time. His strength was something that others feared yet respected. While Lin Dong was secretly in awe over the frightening strength of that super formation, he suddenly realized that his mind was gradually drifting towards that formation. Immediately, he was stunned by this discovery as cold sweat began to cover his entire body. After all, be it the super formation or the crack between the plains, he could not oppose any of them with his current strength. Nonetheless, regardless of how much he struggled, Lin Dong was unable to break free. Hence, he could only stare in shock while his mind grew closer to that super formation. As he gradually approached that formation, the pressure radiating from that super formation also caused his mind to tremble. In fact, it felt as though his mind was about to scatter at this moment. However, as Lin Dong slowly approached that super formation, it also discovered his presence. After which, above that formation, a faint light spread and actually formed an illusionary figure that almost covered the entire world. Though one was unable to discern the appearance of that illusionary figure, he gave off a ripple that could tower over the entire world. Is that the symbol ancestor? That illusionary figure was only the upper half of a body. However, it looked as though the entire world was beneath him. Then, he slowly extended his large hand before his finger penetrated the empty space and pressed down towards Lin Dong. Lin Dong could not dodge such an attack. Instantly, that finger had already landed on his body. Bang! Lin Dong's mind seemingly shattered the moment that finger touched him. After which, he felt the darkness disappearing swiftly. Then, the sky appeared once again before clouds resurfaced. After which, his mind began to fall rapidly. This descent continued for a long time. Soon after, Lin Dong suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately, rich shock surfaced on his face, while cold perspiration rained down from his forehead, drenching his entire body instantly. Have I returned? Lin Dong extended his slightly trembling hand before he clenched it. Then, he looked at that ice barrier, which was located outside. Through that layer of ice, it was possible to see the bustling Tao sect. Meanwhile, countless Tao sect disciples were shuttling around. Compared to what he experienced before, what he experienced now was as different as life and death. Lin Dong lifted his head and looked at the sky with some lingering fear. At a place so far away that he could not reach, there was a super formation created by the symbol ancestor after he ignited his reincarnation. Moreover, there was also a terrifying crack between the planes. Even a reincarnation stage expert was unable to reach that place. However, with the help of the spatial ancestral symbol, Lin Dong managed to catch a glimpse of that place. However, that feeling was simply far too frightening. Previously, Lin Dong felt as though his soul was shattered. If that illusionary figure had even the slightest desire to kill him, it was likely that he would have been completely annihilated. Lin Dong wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead. Suddenly, his hand paused before he looked at his palm. After which, he saw that his palm was now giving off a faint silver glow. This sudden change caused him to be startled. Subsequently, he looked at his body. At this moment, his body was giving off a silver glow. Moreover, a peculiar sensation had emerged between his brows. Lin Dong gently shut his eyes. Immediately, he felt like his surrounding space seemed to have merged with him. In fact, with a single thought, he could appear 300 miles away. This is, am I in control of the spatial ancestral symbol? This unique sensation left Lin Dong in shock. Promptly, wild joy surged within his eyes. After all, only someone who was in control of the spatial ancestral symbol could merge perfectly with the empty space itself. Lin Dong quickly shut his eyes. After which, he probed the spatial ancestral symbol, which was floating quietly within his body and had formed a triangular shape with the devouring ancestral symbol and the thunderbolt ancestral symbol. However, he realized that the resistance from before had disappeared completely. While Lin Dong was observing the quiet spatial ancestral symbol with joy, the latter suddenly shook. After which, he felt that as the spatial ancestral symbol began to tremble, the mighty Yuan power within his body began to gather at a rapid rate, just like floodwaters. While his Yuan power began to gather together at a crazy rate, a unique change began to occur within his mighty Yuan power. It was a transformation that only occurred when his strength had agglomerated until its limits. Ocean-like Yuan power floated within Lin Dong's body. Meanwhile, there was a mysterious ripple at the bottom of that Yuan power ocean. As that mysterious ripple slowly grew, a divine sensation slowly spread. It was the reincarnation ripple. Shock gushed into Lin Dong's eyes. That was because he knew that he was about to take a step, one which had obstructed countless of experts for their entire lives. After that one step was reincarnation. Time flies. All of a sudden, 2 months had passed. During the past 2 months, the ice barrier on the mountain peak did not disappear. Hence, everyone could only vaguely see a skinny figure within that ice barrier. However, with the passage of time, even an ordinary Dao sect disciple could detect that an extremely frightening Yuan power fluctuation was slowly gathering within that ice barrier. Thick layers of clouds rolled in the sky above Dao sect. Those clouds were all formed from Yuan power. Meanwhile, the density of the Yuan power within had reached an extremely frightening stage. The pressure radiating from those Yuan power caused even a Samsara stage expert's heart to shudder. Situated at the main mountain of Dao sect, Ying Xuanzi and the rest lifted their heads and stared in amazement at the sky. Currently, Ying Xuanzi was a top expert who had touched reincarnation. However, he was ultimately unable to take the final step. This was because not only was his knowledge of reincarnation lacking, but the density of the Yuan power within his body had not reached that abnormal level. Since his Yuan power was lacking, he was naturally unable to create reincarnation will. However, from the looks of it, it's about time. Ying Xuanzi muttered to himself. He could sense that the Yuan power gathering in the sky had gradually reached their limits. After all, if the Yuan power continued to accumulate, it was likely that the entire place would collapse. Bang! However, soon after his voice sounded, a strange noise was suddenly emitted from the sky. Immediately, countless Dao sect disciples lifted their heads in shock. Then, they saw that the Yuan power clouds, that were spread over 300 miles, were slowly distorting at this moment. Strange rays of light penetrated through the clouds and shone downwards. Anyone who was shone by those light rays immediately felt absent-minded. Meanwhile, the Yuan power within their bodies grew stealthily. The light of reincarnation. On a mountain peak a short distance away, when the Flame Master saw those rays of light, his pupils hardened gently. Subsequently, he directed his attention towards that mountain peak, which was covered by a layer of ice. Lin Dong had finally taken this step. If he advanced to the reincarnation stage, he will be qualified to join the ranks of the elite. The Flame Master muttered to himself. Soon after, he frowned gently. Then, he used his palm to touch his chest before a dark expression flashed across his eyes. Those fellows, they have finally made their move. Bang! The yuan power clouds in the sky began to churn at a quicker pace. In the next moment, a thunderous noise suddenly appeared. After which, everyone was stunned when they saw that the layers of clouds were actually forcefully ripped apart, before a 10,000 feet large yuan power torrent suddenly poured downwards. That yuan power torrent looked just like a waterfall that hung from the sky, as it descended together with a frightening momentum. Finally, it descended onto the ice barrier in front of countless pairs of stunned eyes. Crack! That extremely sturdy ice barrier collapsed instantaneously, before ice fragments shot in all directions. At a short distance away, when Jingtan saw that the ice barrier was broken, her expression changed immediately. Promptly, she clenched her small hand, before black light spread. However, just as she was about to intervene, an icy cold hand stopped her. This is something that one must personally experience in order to break into the reincarnation stage. No one else should intervene. Otherwise, it will only be detrimental towards him. Ying Huan said. Upon hearing this, Jingtan gently bit her lips. Then, she looked at that mountain peak in a somewhat worried manner. That yuan power assault was truly frightening, and there was no telling if Lin Dong could withstand it. That ice barrier was shattered. Immediately, countless pairs of eyes turned to look in that direction. Then, they saw that the skinny figure seated on that mountain peak had also stood up at this moment. As he stared at that descending yuan power waterfall, there wasn't the slightest hint of fear on his face. Instead, there was wild heat surging within his dark black eyes. Lin Dong's body shook gently. After which, an enormous black hole appeared above his head. That yuan power waterfall landed, before it charged ruthlessly into that black hole. However, this attack was so terrifying that it even caused that black hole to tremble. Then, Lin Dong suddenly took a step back. In fact, it seemed like his inner organs were displaced after that attack. However, Lin Dong also knew that there was no way he could shrink back at this moment. The black hole began to rotate at an increasingly rapid pace. Meanwhile, the devouring power within Lin Dong's body was unleashed to its limits as it crazily devoured the frightening yuan power. Subsequently, it was transmitted into Lin Dong's body. As those mighty yuan power entered his body, it looked as though there were countless yuan power snakes wiggling on his body. It was quite a frightening sight. One end of the yuan power waterfall was connected to the clouds in the sky, while the other was pouring into the black hole. In fact, it looked like a huge dragon that connected the sky to the ground. It was a spectacular sight to behold. However, it was clearly not an easy task to advance to the reincarnation stage. Soon after the first yuan power waterfall descended, the yuan power cloud suddenly churned once again. After which, everyone was stunned when they saw 10 yuan power waterfalls whizzing down from the clouds. They looked just like white dragons, as they bared their claws and charged ferociously towards Lin Dong. When they saw this sight, Ying Xuanzi and the rest's expressions changed drastically. In fact, Jingtan even clenched her small hand tightly. Meanwhile, standing beside them, Ying Huan's icy blue eyes were staring intently at that figure on the mountain peak. Lin Dong had also realized this development. Immediately, his pupils shrunk gently. Soon after, a ruthless expression flashed across his eyes. If he could not survive this trial, how could he possibly dream about surpassing the ancient masters? Devouring ancestral symbol. A low and deep roar was suddenly emitted from Lin Dong's mouth. Soon after, an extremely pure black light came whistling from his head. After which, black light gathered rapidly above his head, before they finally transformed into a massive black symbol. As that symbol slowly wiggled, frightening amounts of devouring power erupted. Due to that devouring power, everyone was shocked when they realized that the yuan power within their bodies were actually showing signs of spluttering forth. Is that the devouring ancestral symbol? Ying Xuanzi and the rest were a little stunned as they looked at that black mysterious ancient symbol. Was this the legendary devouring ancestral symbol? The devouring ancestral symbol wiggled rapidly. Soon after, it swiftly turned into a black human figure, who looked exactly the same as Lin Dong. However, his eyes were just like black holes as they looked extremely deep and mysterious. Roar! That black figure roared towards the sky. Then, a terrifying amount of devouring power erupted from his mouth. In fact, even the sky itself was devoured until it became distorted. Moreover, the 10 yuan power waterfalls were also affected by it, as they crazily poured into the mouth of that black figure together with a frightening momentum. While Lin Dong devoured at this frightening rate, low and deep explosive noises continuously sounded from within his body. Soon after, everyone was stunned when they saw that his body was swelling at a frightening rate. Within a short period of time, Lin Dong turned into a 1,000,000 feet tall giant. Meanwhile, the yuan power were coursing through his body like a raging python. Bang! Suddenly, Lin Dong's arm, which had swelled to its limits, actually blew apart. Immediately, blood spurted forth, before countless Dao sect disciples involuntarily exclaimed in shock. Did he fail? Many pairs of anxiety-filled eyes shot over, only to see that after Lin Dong's arm blew apart, there was a jade bone arm with a mysterious glow sparkling over it. Moreover, there seemed to be a dragon roar spreading from within his bones. Life chi surged, before the blood and flesh on his arm began to regenerate at a frighteningly rate. However, at this moment, various parts of Lin Dong's body continuously blew apart. As a result, his body was in a complete mess, and this sight caused one's heart to shudder in fear. Nonetheless, after any part of his body was blown apart after it was stuffed full of yuan power, blood and flesh would regenerate quickly. After all, as long as his skeleton and innards remained intact, blood and flesh could regenerate swiftly. Thanks to Lin Dong's powerful primal dragon bone, even though a frightening amount of yuan power was pouring into his body, they could not destroy his bones. Bang bang bang. Everyone's heart was pounding in fear when they heard the sound of flesh exploding from the mountain peak. Meanwhile, a dense blood fog spread from that area before it finally covered the entire mountain peak. This explosion continued until evening. Finally, it began to die down. Everyone was looking at that area, however, the dense blood fog was so thick that it was difficult for one to see through. Therefore, no one knew whether Lin Dong had survived. In the sky, the final yuan power waterfall was finally devoured by that black figure, which was formed by the devouring ancestral symbol. Subsequently, that black figure trembled violently before he finally transformed into a black light and shot into that blood fog. Roar! A low and deep dragon roar was emitted the moment that black figure shot into that blood fog. Moreover, the pressure radiating from that dragon roar caused countless people to tremble in fear. A resplendent purple-gold light suddenly ripped through the blood fog, before it shot towards the sky. Soon after, it transformed into a huge purple-gold dragon. Then, that dragon opened its mouth and devoured the viscous blood fog, before it finally roared towards the sky. That earth-shaking dragon roar spread. Following which, the yuan power clouds in the sky actually whizzed downwards. Finally, they were all swallowed by that purple-gold dragon. Warm sunlight once again shone down from the sky. Meanwhile, the frightening yuan power pressure also slowly dissipated. However, every pair of eyes was focused on that humongous purple-gold dragon. Meanwhile, intense light had erupted in that spot, before that purple-gold dragon began to shrink in a distorted fashion. Finally, it once again turned into a skinny figure in front of the crowd. That man was dressed in black clothes and his black hair was drifting gently with the wind. Meanwhile, there was a faint purple-gold glow on his youthful face, while an authoritative pressure, which could not be described with words, radiated from him. His dark black eyes were as deep as the night sky, causing one to sink within them. That man stood in the sky. Following which, he slowly clenched his long hands, before he subsequently released a long and clear roar. Immediately, a 10,000 feet large light pillar erupted from within his body. Finally, it transformed into an enormous light plate above the sky. That light plate rotated gently. There was no beginning and no end to it, just like reincarnation. Reincarnation plate. Ying Xuanzi and the rest stared at that enormous light plate, before joy surged within their eyes. After all, they knew that once that light plate appeared, it indicated that Lin Dong had truly advanced to the reincarnation stage. Standing in the sky, Lin Dong's eyes were also focused on that light plate. Meanwhile, an excited glow appeared on his lips. I've finally reached this stage. The clouds in the sky scattered as the terrifying aura that had enveloped Dao Sect for the past 2 months gradually receded. Lin Dong hovered in the sky as he felt the almost endless and inexhaustible yuan power undulations emanating from within his body. A smile surfaced from the corners of his lips. As expected of the reincarnation stage, the difference from before was akin to heaven and earth. No wonder he had been pushed into such a miserable state by the seventh seat king despite his various powerful techniques and the power of 2 ancestral symbols. However, if he was to meet that fellow again, Lin Dong had the confidence that he would no longer be taken advantage of. Big brother Lin Dong. A lovely voice emerged from below as Qing Tan flew over. She observed Lin Dong from top to bottom, patted her chest and sighed in relief when she saw that nothing had happened to him. Are you all right? Ying Huan also swiftly followed and arrived. Her penetrating and icy eyes were filled with concern. Lin Dong shook his head and said, "How long was I in cultivation seclusion this time?" 2 years. Qing Tan replied. Lin Dong was stunned. Soon after, he saw the playful smile on Qing Tan's lips and immediately angrily pinched her pretty face. "Don't plan on living anymore, huh? To think that you even dare to make fun of me. I was in the wrong." Having been disciplined, Qing Tan resentfully covered her face with her hand. Lin Dong could not help but be secretly happy as he gazed at this appearance of hers. Soon after, he gently patted her cheeks. He knew that this lass had teased him with the intention of getting him to relax and be happy. When he thought about it, this lass was now the master of Darkness Palace, yet she still remained so obedient before him. This made him feel rather gratified in his heart. It's been 2 months. Ying Huan chuckled and said as she watched the pair of siblings cause a small ruckus. 2 months, huh? Only then did Lin Dong nod his head. He had been lost within space itself and had already lost all sense of time. Fortunately, he had managed to return. Congratulations junior brother Lin Dong. Following Qing Tan and Ying Huan, Ying Xuanzi, Zhu Tong and the rest also swiftly flew into the sky. Zhu Tong cupped his fists towards Lin Dong as he laughed and said. Lin Dong returned the gesture as he glanced at Zhu Tong. The latter's yuan spirit was becoming increasingly corporeal and it was likely that it would not be long till he was able to create a physical body. At that time, he would completely recover. I have cultivated for so many years and yet am still stuck at the peak of the samsara stage. A little one like you merely cultivated for 12 years and has already surpassed me. This truly is, Ying Xuanzi lamented as he sighed. He felt rather miserable. This world had its share of monsters after all. Lin Dong laughed. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed. A fiery wave suddenly erupted from a distant mountain peak. Was it the Flame Master? What is it? Ying Xuanzi and the rest also detected this sudden change as their expressions filled with alarm. A flash of red light hastily swept over from the distance before appearing before Lin Dong and the rest. It was the Flame Master. However, his body was currently entire red and seemed a little incorporeal. What's going on? When Lin Dong saw this change in the Flame Master's state, he was a little taken back as he hurriedly asked. Something has happened in the chaotic demon sea. The Flame Master's eyes were rather grim as replied. Lin Dong's pupils contracted slightly. Is it the Yimo? Yes, they have finally started moving. The Flame Master nodded before continuing. The chaotic demon sea has now fallen into complete chaos as countless Yimo surge out from the bottom of the sea. I believe that this news will soon reach the eastern Xian region. Lin Dong's expression was grave. To have caused such an expression on the Flame Master, this was surely not a small disturbance. They also seem to have found the location of my true body. The Flame Master said. Lin Dong's expression changed. He had visited the lava domain where the Flame Master was located. Something rather terrifying seemed to be sealed there. Is it because of the thing that has been sealed there? The place that you are suppressing should also be a devil-suppressing prison, right? The Flame Master nodded his head. After some hesitation, he said, the prison I'm suppressing has the least number of Yimo amongst the 3 prisons. However, there is an extremely formidable thing there. What? The former mount of the Yimo Emperor, cosmic evil devil king. Around them, Ying Xuanzi and the rest violently sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Although they had not heard of this so-called cosmic evil devil king, they had heard of the Yimo Emperor. The Yimo Emperor was a terrifying existence that even the symbol ancestor had to ignite his reincarnation to successfully seal. The mount of such an existence would be extremely frightening. The cosmic evil devil king, Lin Dong's eyebrows tightly furrowed. The thing that the Chen Yuanzi trio had fused with was also a cosmic evil devil. Its power was exceptionally astonishing, hence, this cosmic evil devil king was surely extraordinary. Else, it would not be under the care of someone like the Flame Master. I'm afraid that this cosmic evil devil king's strength is only slightly inferior to the devil prison's most powerful heaven seat king. It will not be easy to deal with if it escapes. The Flame Master solemnly said. Lin Dong nodded his head. If this cosmic evil devil king escaped, the devil prison's power would soar and surely change the overall situation. For them, this was a tremendous pressure. Is my help needed? Lin Dong asked. It is, however you will not be helping me. The Flame Master did not hesitate. Lin Dong now had the ability and qualifications to help them. Then who will I help? Lin Dong asked in a puzzled manner. You will go to the Chaos Master. The Flame Master said in a heavy voice, according to the information I have received, Devil Prison has also discovered the location of the Chaos Master. He suffered extremely serious injuries back then, and is now at the most critical step of his recovery. I intend for you to protect him. The Devil Prison also knows of the Chaos Master's current condition. If the Chaos Master is injured at such a time, it will greatly weaken our power. The Chaos Master was similarly one of the 8 ancient masters, and was one of the most powerful pieces on their side. If any accident was to occur, it would be disastrous. What about the Thunder Master and the rest? Lin Dong was somewhat puzzled as he asked. It was impossible for the Thunder Master to be unaware of such an important matter. Devil Prison was prepared this time. The Thunder Master had previously went to scout Devil Prison and is currently trapped. As for the Spatial Master and the Darkness Master, they are being vigilantly watched by Devil Prison and are temporarily unable to get away. Thus, I need you help. The Flame Master explained. As for the Life-Death Master, the injuries she suffered back then were second only to little junior sister. I'm afraid that she is likely still be within the cycle of reincarnation. The Life-Death Master did not die. Lin Dong was somewhat surprised. The Life-Death ancestral symbol was extremely peculiar and had already transformed into human form, which was that little Laos Mu Lingshan. According to the immortal sage Whale clan, the Life-Death Master was their ancestor. However, when they opened her tomb, they did not find any skeleton but instead an egg. This egg was what the Life-Death ancestral symbol had transformed into, which hatched later on, becoming Mu Lingshan. The Life-Death Master controls life and death. She is the one that is least likely to die and should still be alive. She has merely yet to awaken. The Flame Master replied. Lin Dong could not help but lick his lips. As the expected of the expert who controlled the life-death ancestral symbol, even death was so difficult. To fully suppress the cosmic evil demon king, I have to dispel this apparition of mine. Thus, you must quickly head over. The Flame Master said. The ripples from his body were growing increasingly intense. It was evident that this apparition of his was about to disappear. Lin Dong nodded his head. Since such a great disturbance had occurred in the chaotic demon sea, he needed to go over and make sure the Jiyu clan, Tang Xinlian, Mu Lingshan and the rest were all right. If the chaotic demon sea was affected, the places they were at would not be spared. After saying what he needed to, the Flame Master's gaze turned towards Ying Huan. He hesitated for a while before speaking. I'm afraid that I cannot continue to stay at your side this time. Ying Huan lightly nodded her head. Her slender ice-cold hand gently grasped Lin Dong's large hand as she replied in a soft voice, "He will not let anything happen to me." The Flame Master secretly sighed softly. Soon after, flames suddenly emerged on his body. When the flames faded, his body had disappeared. Lin Dong knew that the Flame Master had retrieved this avatar of his. Looks like the danger this time was indeed not small. Else, it would not have forced him to take back all of his power. Sect Master, I will directly head to the Chaotic Demon Sea. Now that Devil Prison has put all of their efforts into the Chaotic Demon Sea, the Eastern Xian region should be safe for the time being. Lin Dong did not hesitate. He tilted his head towards Ying Xuanzi and said, "Brother Lin Dong, bring me along too. I still haven't been to the Chaotic Demon Sea." Qing Tan hastily said. She was afraid that Lin Dong would leave her behind. "Me too." Ying Huan's icy and penetrating eyes looked towards Lin Dong and said. Upon seeing this, Lin Dong could not help but bitterly laugh. After pondering for a moment, he nodded his head. Qing Tan was the darkness ancestral symbol controller and wielded the darkness sand scythe. Hence she would be able to engage in battle with even a true king-level Yimo king. Moreover, even he could not really tell how powerful Ying Huan currently was, and she would contribute greatly to their battle power if she came along. Most importantly, he would worry if he left her behind by herself. "Then the three of us shall go." Qing Tan immediately smiled happily when she heard this. Even her pretty little face had become substantially more sweet and charming. "Since that is so, then go. Remember to take care of each other." Ying Xuanzi nodded his head. Given this trio's strength, they could go anywhere in this world. There was not much need to worry about them. Sect leader, Dao sect should seal off itself for the time being after we leave in case anything should happen. Let me know if any problem crops up. Now that I have refined the spatial ancestral symbol, I will be able to quickly return here. Lin Dong said. Although Devil Prison's power was concentrated in the Chaotic Demon Sea, there was no harm in being careful. Okay. Ying Xuanzi nodded and responded. Upon seeing this, Lin Dong no longer delayed. His arms reached out and grabbed Ying Huan and Qing Tan. Of the two slim waists, one was as soft as a snake while the other was ice-cold like jade, a feeling that made one feel somewhat reluctant to part with. However, Lin Dong currently did not have the mood to enjoy this sensation. With a thought, silver light exploded from his body as the surrounding space started to violently distort. When the silver light faded, everyone saw that the three figures had already disappeared into the distorted space and only violent spatial undulations remained. Ying Xuanzi watched the trio disappear as he gently spit out a mouthful of air. He exchanged a look with Zhu Tong and the rest as he secretly sighed. This world was finally beginning to fall into turmoil again. This video will end here.